Welcome to Humans for Humanity, the after show, the sacred debrief space for what cannot be summarized. If you've just watched the full episode with Erin on YouTube, you already know. This wasn't just a conversation, it was a reentry, a vibrational return to the original frequency that existed before survival took over. We don't use this space to recap, we use it to reverberate, to pause inside the transmission and let it land where language couldn't reach the first time. Because Erin didn't come to perform, she came to release, to offer her field as a mirror for the ones who've outgrown the delay, but haven't known how to move without apology. This wasn't a story of collapse. This was the collapse seen as sacred. The reclamation of voice, essence, and embodied timing after lifetimes of waiting. Erin didn't just share insight, she stood in full presence and let the resonance do the work. So if something shook loose in you during that episode, don't dismiss it. That wasn't emotion, it was recognition. This after show is for that part of you. That part that heard the field shift and whispered, I remember this. Let's begin. Erin showed us that the shape-shifting mask becomes the embodied messenger. There was a time Erin wore the version of herself that the world could stomach. Softer at the edges, more explainable, more allowed. But that version was a survival strategy. What we witnessed in her full episode was not a shift in belief, it was a shift in signal. She no longer asks for space to exist. She takes up space by simply arriving in truth. This is the difference between talking about embodiment and being the vibration of it. Erin showed us that the waiting mask becomes the now frequency. We're taught to stall our emergence, to wait until pain is processed, until the timing is perfect, until the universe gives us permission to move. But Erin interrupted that spell. She showed us what happens when you stop outsourcing your becoming to some imagined future moment and start inhabiting the one you're in. No countdown, no applause, just the sacred decision to end the delay and let the soul take the lead again. Erin's story showed us that the burnt out mask becomes the original signal. She didn't rise from the ashes to rebuild. She rose remembering what could never be burned. This wasn't recovery, it was return. There are versions of you that don't need healing, they need unburying. That's what Erin modeled. A life lived not through achievement, but through alignment with the code that never left. The part of you that didn't collapse. The part that was always vibrating beneath the debris. Waiting for the body to say, it's time. Through Erin, we learned that the performed healer becomes the field walker. There is a version of healing that is curated, packaged, safe, spoken in ways that will make others comfortable. But Erin doesn't walk as the healer. She walks as the field itself. She doesn't describe transformation. She moves inside it. Every word, every pause wasn't explanation. It was energetic imprint. She's not here to give you the tools. She's here to remind you of the resonance. You already carry this within you when you stop trying to be digestible. The healed self doesn't seek to be admired. It just is. And in that presence, timelines shift. Erin showed us that the separated self becomes the undeniable code. She didn't teach us how to become whole. She reminded us that we were never not whole. Only distant, disconnected, disassociated from the truth, perhaps. She didn't perform self-worth. She remembered identity as energy. The separated self bends, bargains, shrinks. The remembered self radiates. And when she stopped trying to find herself through others' reflections, the code reactivated. Not because she searched harder, but because she stopped negotiating her frequency. That is the real work. To stop being understandable and become undeniable. Erin showed us that the collapsed timeline becomes the holy threshold. When the old life falls apart, the mind calls it failure. But Erin stood inside her collapse like it was a sacred threshold. Not something to recover from, but something to step through. Because what if the loss isn't loss? What if the grief is intelligence? What if the things that shattered weren't part of the next version of you? Because they were never built to hold. That is what we witnessed. Not a woman who rose from the rubble, a woman who walked forward because the rubble was no longer hers. Now moving forward, there's no more echo, only source. This is the part that most people never reach, where the old story can't hold you, but the new one hasn't fully formed yet. Where silence becomes a portal, and stillness doesn't mean stuck. It means you've stopped outsourcing your becoming. This is where Erin walked from. Not a mountaintop, a place beneath. Beneath the masks, beneath the spiritual language, beneath the performance of transformation. And what she brought to this conversation wasn't clarity, it was coherence. There's a difference. Clarity happens in the mind. Coherence happens in the field. Clarity is language. Coherence is resonance. And when someone walks in coherence, they don't have to prove anything. Their presence reorders the space. That's what Erin did. She didn't just sit with us, she fielded us. She brought her full, unmasked frequency into the room and let it speak louder than the story ever could. This is embodiment. Not branding, not spiritual polish, not messaging. Just the raw, uncut frequency of someone who stopped negotiating with timelines that required her to shrink. If you felt her words in your bones more than your brain, that is the signal working. If you felt your nervous system slow down, your body come online, your soul get louder, That wasn't inspiration, that was integration. It means the field around you is responding. The realignment is already in motion. Because here's the secret. You don't have to be fully healed to walk in your truth. You just have to be fully present inside your own code. That's what Erin modeled. She didn't wait for the world to understand. She walked in as someone who no longer needed to be explained. And when you reach this level of coherence, you don't try to vibrate higher. You simply stop lowering yourself to meet a version of you you've already outgrown. You stop shape-shifting. You stop softening. You stop translating the sacred. And you realize you are not here to be palatable. You are here to be precise. This isn't a story about overcoming. It's about overriding every old structure that told you to be less. And once you override that noise, there's no going back. Your field will keep calling you forward. Your body will no longer tolerate delay. Your truth will no longer accept distortion. This is what coherence demands, that you embody what you remember, and that you live like it's not negotiable anymore. Because it isn't. That's where Erin lives now, and that's where she left us, in a space where embodiment isn't a goal. It's the ground beneath your step. Erin's interview wasn't just an interview. It was the code coming back online. You see, there comes a moment when playing small stops being an inconvenience and becomes a soul betrayal. There comes a moment when I'm working on it becomes a stall tactic. When the identity you built to survive starts suffocating the one you came here to live. That moment isn't a breakdown, it's a signal. And you can either collapse under it or rise through it. This is your moment, not the clean one, not the perfect one, the true one. The one where you stop choosing silence because you think your truth is too much. The one where you stop translating your essence for people who were never meant to understand your language. You don't need more healing, you need more honesty. You don't need more time, you need more truth. You don't need to be someone new. You need to embody the one you already are without shrinking, softening, or editing to death. Because that person, the one underneath the shame, the delay, the mask, they remember. They remember what it felt like to know deep in your bones before you were taught to forget. And now that memory is coming back online. Not as inspiration, this is internal revolt. The kind where your body says, I will not carry these false timelines one day longer. The kind where your soul says, I choose me, even if no one claps. The kind where your energy enters the room before you even say a word and everyone feels the difference. Because they will. When you stop performing and start vibrating truth, you become undeniable. You become the field. You become the evidence. You become the permission slip no one else had the courage to write. You want to know why you feel this in your chest, what I'm saying right now? because your future self is already watching, and they are tired of waiting. They're tired of the apology, tired of the delay, tired of watching you decorate the cage instead of unlocking the door. So this is it. The door is open, not because someone handed you a key, but because you are the key. You always were. Now it's time to walk through the wreckage, to walk through the noise, to walk through the discomfort, the contraction, the grief. Walk like someone who knows they didn't come here to be liked. They came here to be light. Unapologetic, untranslated, unmistakable. You are not the echo. You are the origin point. You're not the reflection. You are the flame. And the world doesn't need more followers. It needs more field walkers. So stop waiting for a sign and be the pulse that starts the storm. I leave you with this. You don't just walk away from an episode like that. You rise differently inside it. Because once the code comes back online, you can't go back to pretending you're not ready. You can't unfeel the field shift. You can't unknow your knowing. You can't rebind yourself to the version of you that waited politely for the green light to begin. Because this was the green light. This is permission. This was the proof. Not from Erin's story, but from the part of you that rose to meet it. The part that hummed with recognition. The part that cracked open. The part that whispered, "This is it. This is me. I'm back." So no, you're not watching from the outside anymore. You are in it. You are the vibration now. You are the reentry. You are the signal that returns to the body and makes it a temple again. This is not about finding your purpose. This is about remembering your presence is the purpose. It's not about reclaiming your power. It's about realizing you never gave it away. You only forgot how to feel it. And now that you remember, don't shrink. Don't stall. Don't ask the world if it's ready. The world doesn't decide your readiness. Your resonance does. And right now, you are vibrating in the frequency of no return. No return to performing, no return to permission seeking, no return to spiritual cosplay. This is the walk back in. The code re-inhabited. This is what it looks like when one woman stands in her field fully, fiercely, and unmasked, and the entire grid remembers how to breathe again. This is not just Erin's reckoning. This is yours. This is the reckoning of the living code, and it has already begun. Thank you again so much to Erin for sharing your story and your heart with us. And thank you to everyone for listening, sharing, liking, and even just accepting space for this podcast in your life. I truly appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. Please look forward this week to 2 new interviews. We have both Taylor and Jen coming on the podcast, and I am so excited to share their energy and their voices with you as well. I will see you next week for the follow-up episodes. Thank you again for listening. This is Ashley from Humans for Humanity and The Reckoning Co.